All right, welcome back to The Untamed Life. It's Christine Jewell, and today I'm excited to dive into this conversation with you. It is a solo cast, and I am talking about overwhelm. Today we're going to be talking about and unpacking overwhelm. Is it a curse or a gift? How do we overcome it? Do we even want to overcome it? How do we handle it or manage seasons, times when we are completely overwhelmed? And I want to share some perspective shifts with you, some conscious um, upgrades in terms of the way that you engage with this, and also some very tactical things that you can do to begin to change the game when it comes to overwhelm. So, I mean, if you're human, if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a leader in any capacity, if you're just human, you get overwhelmed, right? And so I want to talk about, this place that we fall into when we're just like overtaken with all of the things, right? How do we navigate through that? It's literally the word overwhelm is like you're just overtaken. It's as if something comes in to your mind, into your body, and just like takes over your entire being. And maybe in that moment, it feels like I cannot think straight. I don't even know which way I'm going. Maybe it feels like you're in the middle of a complete fog. Maybe you start doing things and you're like, who is this person inside of my body? Like reacting this way right now. I'm overwhelmed with anger, right? I've dealt with a lot of anger in my own life. I've gone through so many hurts of like where so much anger just overtook my body. And I was like, what is coming out of my mouth right now? And, it's no as an entrepreneur, it's no surprise, it's no rarity to be overwhelmed by all of the things, in our business, in our with our staff, with projects, with things that we want to do, with ideas, let alone what we have to do on a daily basis. But like the influx of ideas that we're always getting hit with and pings coming at us, right? I've been overwhelmed as a mother with kids, right? Like with the little kids running around and the chaos and the noise and wanting to be a better mom and wanting to do all the right things, and at the same time you're like, oh, I'm an epic failure in this moment, right? Because there's so much I can't seem to handle it. I can't seem to get a handle on it. I can't seem to control it, right? Put it together. So if you're resonating with this, I just want to invite you. Okay, you are not alone. First of all, you're not alone. You're human. And overwhelm is actually a gift. And I want to talk about the gift of it in a minute. I know that so many times it feels like a curse, right? I'm going to raise my hand. And I know because in the past, I was very familiar with being overwhelmed by frustration. Some of my favorite little set points in the past were like chronic frustration, frustrated that I wasn't far enough ahead in the business, far enough ahead where, I thought I should be. I had a lot of comparisonitis. It's been a huge part of my growth journey. I'll probably do a whole episode on that. Still something I have to work on all the time, but really like being overwhelmed with frustration with myself. I should be doing more. I should be further ahead. Why isn't this working? Frustration with people, right? Especially being a quick start. Like I implement fast. And so sometimes you're like, come on, everybody, like catch up. So the set point for me was of frustration and was very familiar. The set point of just like having these uncontrollable emotions, a lot of time that came up, the frustration and stuff was, related to fear, which then we know like turns into anger sometimes once it gets moving. And so again, like not really knowing how to direct or what I was even angry at or what I was even angry about, really, if you ask me. And so there's like all this stacking that became normalized, right? And so I want to say, like, I know that side, and I think anybody that's human can relate to that. And I just want to say that overwhelm is usually one of two things, right? I want to just bring this right up to the surface. Overwhelm means basically that we are wide open in that moment. We are just like wide open, full throttle, right? Our energetic gates are wide open. Our spiritual gates are wide open. Our physical boundaries are usually wide open. In that moment, we might be like, yes, yes to all the things. I want to do everything and I want to do it right now. Or I want to say yes to everyone and I want to please everyone right now. Or I'm struggling because I don't know how to say no to anything or anyone, or I don't know how to say no to the wrong things for me, right? The things I need to know so that I can protect the yeses. So when I say that we are wide open, I mean that like it's funny because sometimes people say, no, I'm not open, I'm closed, I'm closed, I'm closed. And I'm like, you might be hardened in your heart. You might be closed off to certain things. But if you're overwhelmed, your gates are open, baby, right? And again, I'm going to use that example of all those ideas coming in. Sometimes as a content creator too, when I'm in content creation mode, I just like, I get these dumps, right, of like content. And I'm like, I cannot produce these things fast enough. So I have to create these nets to sort of catch all these ideas, catch all these dreams, catch all these visions. And for me, I use, I know it's a lot, and I just capture as if I have a huge net and I'm collecting all of these amazing ideas. And I know one of my coaches I had once said the same thing. He kept an eye note of all of his running like random business ideas that would pop into his mind, because sometimes it could be easy, especially if you are entrepreneurial in spirit, whether you are running your own business or not is irrelevant. But if you like to implement things fast, the minute you get an idea or a ping, you can also be like, oh my gosh, I need it to happen now, and I have to make this happen, instead of like, that's a cool idea, but like, do I actually desire to act on this? And if so, for what reason? Like, what's the long game here? And or is it just like an intuitive hit? And I'm like, yeah, I want to move on it. But sometimes we can get a little confused and we think everything that comes at us, we have to fix, we have to solve, we have to act on, we have to initiate. And that can really put us into overdrive, overwhelm. So the first thing I wanted to address there as it relates to overwhelm is, where am I wide open, right? What am I wide open to? Am I wide open to like feeling like I have to act on all of these ideas? That's great. I'm open to all of these ideas pouring in. But do I feel like I have to do something about everything all the time? Is my door open all the time? I've coached clients and they're like, well, I wanted to have an open door policy. So what they created in their businesses was like texts going off, emails going off, doors are constantly opening, constant interruptions, constant distractions, because I want to be wide open and available to everyone all the time. And I want everyone to know that I'm there for them, but all the time. And I'm like, well, how's that working for you? Right? Like, how is it actually working when you're always available, always on, doors always open? Moms with kids, same thing. I've been through this as a mom, as I coach parents, teenagers, and it's like ping, 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 kids saying, I want this, let's go do this, or I have a problem. It's like, are we actually equipping our kids to be able to handle things on their own? Or are we running in and having to solve and fix and be the solution maker all the time, actually disempowering them, giving them, robbing them of the opportunity to find their own strength, to find their own solutions, to try and fail or get in the practice of things, right? So the first question I want you to come back to is, am I wide open? Like, where am I having trouble saying no, right? Am I trying to shove too many things into my one day? And what would it look like if I just began to close up some of those things, right? Tighten up. I don't necessarily mean shut down, but tighten up some of those things, right? So I can be available during these times. So I can focus on these projects at these times. There's lots of tools out there like time blocking and what that could look like, to, creating tight pockets of focus, blocks where you can show up and work on specific things. I really am not a fan of this idea that we have to have balance in our lives. I think it's really impossible. I think that like tries to get us to be spread ourselves so thin. What I like to say is, okay, when I'm in it, I'm all in with that one thing. But like when I'm not in that, I'm usually not available or not present for that, right? Because when I'm there, I want to bring all of my energy. If it's the weekends and the kids and I, or my husband and I are doing something, or it's date night, or I'm traveling, like I might have my phone every once in a while, and I take pictures and this and that, but like I don't really engage with emails and things like that. Like I shut it down. And I remember this was really, really, really hard for me for a long season. But I just kind of said, screw it. I'm ditching this idea of balance because it's ridiculous. When I'm in my workout, I'm all in on that, and that's it. That's what I'm there for. And it's been funny because even sometimes I'll be doing something and someone will try to talk to me or say something, and then they might have gotten upset. They're like, because I'm in the room, but I'm not there. I'm not present because I'm working on something else. And I'll say, like, if I'm not looking at your eyes, I'm not listening. So can you just wait until I'm done with this, and then I can give you all of my attention, and I'll actually be able to retain what you're speaking to me. And I think a lot of us can raise our hand to this, right? So wide open. The second thing is, as it relates to overwhelm, overwhelm is always either I'm wide open, and therefore I also have, number two, a lack of clarity. Overwhelm is almost always a lack of clarity. One of the first things I do with intakes with new clients is we discuss the level of clarity in their life. You know, it's a simple assessment, but like, how clear is it? Crystal clear, the vision you have right now, where you're going, what you want, what you don't want, right? Like, what are you clear about? And it's funny that it's not funny. I mean, there's a direct link. The lower the clarity, the greater the overwhelm, right? So when we start really digging in and beginning to go, okay, let's get some clarity. Instead of focusing on the overwhelm is a symptom sometimes of, we already mentioned, too many gates wide open. These things are obviously linked, right? They're side by side. And where am I unclear? Let me shine some light on the situation, shine some light in this room. Let me shed some light, and let's start to see, uncover what's actually going on, where I'm going. I love that term, shedding some light, you know, and this is what I think there's great power in having a mentor, a coach, somebody else who can help give you that outside perspective. Sometimes when you're in the dark cave and you're groping around, you're like, I'm in it. I'm overwhelmed by it right now. I can't see the light. Okay. So obviously the practice is, can I pull myself back out, you know, of all of this stuff that I'm energetically attached to, I'm physically entangled with right now? Can I pull myself back to get still, to get quiet? Maybe I meditate, maybe I go for a walk, maybe I pray, maybe I just shift a vantage point, I shed some light, and I can move in, right, a renewed mind, and I start to ask myself better questions. And there's a great podcast episode I did, I think it was episode 38, on the power of asking better questions. But in terms of shedding light on things, asking better questions shifts perspective, changes vantage point. So make sure you check that out in the show notes. But again, the power of having someone else, you know, obviously cultivating the skill and the ability within ourselves to pull away, to go, okay, where have I gotten unclear? And let me start there. Where do I get to shift my focus, which is going to be where we're going into next? And also, do I have someone in my corner that is wise counsel that I can lean on, right? That is like an advisor, a coach, a mentor, someone that I can go to and entrust, who's maybe gone before me on this, who I know has a different vantage point, maybe one that's more aligned to the life that I want to be a match for. I really, you know, personally, I want mentors who've gone before me, who've already walked the walk that they're preaching. And as I look at their life, I'm like, yeah, I want to experience that. Like, their life is a reflection, it's inspiration for me in one arena, right? It doesn't have to be the whole thing. But I heard a great, I don't even know where it came from, but somebody said, don't ever take advice from someone you wouldn't at least want to trade places with for a short amount of time. And it's so potent and so powerful, such wise advice. Why are we sitting here taking advice, getting overwhelmed, taking advice, maybe business advice, the amount of business advice I've received over the years in the past? And I was looking at these people and I was like, I don't really want the life you've got. You know, like, I don't want to work 15-hour days, and I don't want to hustle and grind. I don't want to be a boss babe. I really, like, I just not, you know, and something was just no. And if you try to implement advice from someone who's out of alignment with what you envision for your life, it's going to be a hot mess. It's going to be a hot mess. So, you know, am I here overwhelmed because I'm also trying to implement a bunch of things and advice from someone maybe that I took advice from? It could be something, a book, and, you know, courses you've done or whatever, or things, and you feel like you, again, have to implement everything, but is it in alignment, right? I know I'm throwing a lot of things at you guys, but things to consider. So I just want to recap that, right? Where are you wide open? Is it a lack of clarity? Let's get clear. Let's get focused, right? Let's learn to ask better questions, and let's get some people in our life who can also provide some clarity. Obviously, this is why I'm such, you know, the spiritual walk is such a huge part of my life, because I can't imagine the better place to shed light than being able to go within, to connect with the spirit, to be able to see through different eyes and ears. What is the Spirit of God saying to me in this moment about this situation, right? What does my heart and soul really desire, right? That feels most aligned right now. If we're not able to do that, we're just groping around in the dark, finding solutions at the same level of consciousness that we're asking them in, and that's never a good idea. So we want to, well, it is a good idea if we're in the right level of consciousness, right? But if we're asking questions from a place of fear and scarcity and frustration and anger, we're going to get answers from that same level of consciousness, fear-based answers, right? Lack-based answers. And I'm seeing this a lot right now, especially as people are like, oh, this recession is coming and everything. And be careful of the questions you ask yourself. Be careful the conversations you open yourself to, the energetic gates that are open. So in the past, I already said my old set point was very much overwhelmed by fear or frustration, anxiety, not so much fear. I was like, let's go, let's go, let's go, right? But a lot of disappointment, right? And so here's what I noticed. The last 3 to 4 years, especially, the one thing I know, I'm a highly energetic, a highly emotional person. So I have this like broad range of feeling all the things. But the last, 4 to 5 years of my life, the last 3 to 4 years especially, I really got serious about shifting the state that I was going to live in. Like, my life gets to be amazing, period. My life gets to feel good. I am moving in to this space that I know God has for me, and I'm no longer settling, and I'm going to really cultivate the lifestyle, the life that I desire. And, but I really got serious about creating a life that was amazing, that felt good to me. And again, that's unique for all of us. But what changed is I also realized as I began to travel to these epic places and connect with like really amazing people, and I got to experience like so much abundance, seeing just like the most spectacular places, having the most amazing experiences. What I realized was that overwhelm was still there. It was like taking over me, but it was a different kind of overwhelm. As I began to travel more, and I've traveled my whole life. I have an insatiable appetite for life and travels. But here's what I love about it is I get overwhelmed with curiosity and wonder and awe and like giddiness and excitement. I just love to be in nature. Nature for me is so healing and so soothing. And anytime I'm feeling disconnected or lost or exhausted and I come back to nature, it's like, just I become cocooned and I'm infused with so much life, and I'm overwhelmed with beauty and life force and nourishment. Overwhelmed is the right word. I remember spending, 3 weeks in Sedona at the start of COVID, and in a time when everyone else was really contracting, a lot of the world was contracting in fear, running, hiding, not wanting to come out of their house, don't go. I was moving in deeper into nature, and I spent those 3 weeks hiking in the Red Rocks and, deep in the canyon there at Oak Creek, and meditating on the rocks and praying on the rocks. And I was just immersed in it, and I was so overwhelmed in that season with so many amazing visions and conversations with God and so much beauty and so much healing as I moved into that place of being alone, not alone, physically alone, right? Like I was with the spirit, I was with nature, I was with so much beauty. I was with my husband for part of the time. I was deep in connection with my husband, with God, with nature, with all the things. And it was so healing, overwhelmed. There have been moments and seasons, as I've gone through many dark nights of the souls and shedding of past identities. I do so much identity work with people, right? Upgrading, shifting, releasing an old identity and embodying a new one. And every time you do, it's almost, there's like old version of you dies. And as the old version of you dies, when you first go through this work, it's like, you're holding on for dear life. You're scrambling and you're grasping and you're trying to hold on to everything from your past while also trying to create your new life. And those of you who are there in that tension, you know how painful that is. It just doesn't work. You have to be willing to completely sacrifice and surrender and like burn your old identity and say, you know what, I'm not her anymore. Like I'm evolved. I can rebuild from the ashes of her. I can use those ashes and like as treasure and like bring some of that goodness into the future, but I can't hold on to that and also create this. I've got to really open myself up wide open for the right thing. Here's that word, wide open, again. And in those moments when I could feel like, this old version of me was dying off and God was really refining my character and taking me through some fires of refinement, and I was just like struggling sometimes, right? And I was overwhelmed in those moments where I felt like, oh, what is going to happen? What is my next step? I was also overwhelmed. When I opened myself up to the Spirit of God to come in, I became overwhelmed, overtaken by grace. Overtaken by grace. A grace like a blanket of love that I have never felt so deep and wide in my life. A grace that really held me. A grace that seemed to permeate and like penetrate every ounce of my physical essence, but also my emotional body and my spiritual body, and just infuse me with this kind of cocoon that was like this holding that said, I got you, I'm here, and I love you just as you are. And so this overwhelming grace, and I still experience it a lot, now as I'm in conversations, in conversation with God on a daily basis. I walk and I feel this overwhelming sense of being held, being supported, being guided, being connected. And it's an overwhelm, right? And it just takes over me. And sometimes I'm like, the tears are pouring out, and there's so much gratitude. This is not a gratitude practice, people. This is not just like, oh, I'm sitting there and I'm writing out the 20 things that I'm happy for in my life. This is not me doing incantations and rituals to kind of like, I am worthy and I am loved. No, it's none of that. It's literally opening myself up to go into this beautiful, deep conversation with God, and allowing myself to be fully open, say, I'm here, fill me up, right? We have to give permission to be open, right? We have to actually decide that we will be open to something. And the thing is, some of us don't realize that we have just given permission to all the wrong things for a long time. And so now they're so automated and so ingrained. We think, I'm not giving permission to that, but you are, because it's so automated. It's like driving with your doors open, right? It's like, I've got to be aware of what's in my automatic nervous system that I'm just like open to all the time. Let me learn to shut those gates. Let me close some doors there so that I can open up the doors to the right things. A few weeks ago, when I was on one of my writing retreats and I was going on a hike to this waterfall after writing for 4 days, and I was working on the book and stuff, and I thought, okay, that's it. I've hit capacity. I'm kind of depleted. I need to just go be filled, right? I need to be filled with nurturing energy, with life, with movement. I got to move some things. And as I was walking, like just in that walk-in nature, and I was starting to hear the water rushing of the stream, and I was looking ahead, and I was, just in conversation with my heart. I really believe like being in a relationship with God even is just like, you're just talking, like kind of like I would be texting my husband or calling my friend or talking to the kids. I'm walking down the trail and I'm having a conversation, and it was like, come and just be with me here, and all of a sudden I'm just overwhelmed, and it's like the greens of the trees just got 20 times greener, and the richness got that much richer, and I could feel the depth of the soil, and I could hear the water, and the waterfall was there, and it was like there was so much strength, and there was so much beauty, the masculine and the feminine. There was so much nurturing and holding energy. There was so much calm that just washed over, and it was overwhelming. And, it was a beautiful overwhelm. That then, after, in the moment, I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was overwhelmed. I wasn't like focusing on any one thing. I was taking it all in. Here's the point I'm getting to. I was taking it all in. I was wide open to receive. And whether you think you are or think you're not, you are receiving if you're getting overwhelmed, because you are receiving the energy of everything else around you. You are receiving the thoughts of the collective, whether the ones that you're opting in to receive or the ones that are just automatically coming at you all the time because you've been entertaining them, the thoughts you've been entertaining. The bottom line here is that overwhelm is a gift. If you can feel all of the things, consider yourself lucky, because there are a lot of numbed out, stressed out, sedated people walking around desperate to feel anything. There are a lot of people creating self-inducing pain into their lives, self-sabotaging their relationships, creating pain unconsciously because they just want to feel something. So at least the pain is familiar. Right? If you can feel everything, consider it a gift. Because a lot of my work is also helping people get unnumb, unnumb from all the years of having to be hardened to everything. And it's just saying no to everything. No to love, no to people, no, and creating so much thick armor and so many walls, and maybe sedating themselves so much to just create these walls of protection so that they didn't feel the overwhelm, that they actually rob themselves of the ability to be overwhelmed with joy, overwhelmed with passion, overwhelmed with grace, with forgiveness, with love, overwhelmed with acceptance. Just overwhelmed is okay, right? The question is, which overwhelm? Are you willing to choose your overwhelm? As I wrap up today's episode, I just want to, invite you to consider a few things. Number one, am I someone who is open to feeling all of it? If I'm out on the lake, I was paddleboarding on the lake, last week. It was just the mountains were in the background. It was the sun. It was breathtaking. By the way, beauty is breathtaking. Are you willing to open yourself up to take it all in? To have your breath swept away and become overwhelmed instead of being afraid of being overwhelmed? Are you willing, right? And if you are already like, Christine, I have no problem with that. I'm wide open. But my set point is always in the negatives, right? In the things that consume me and contract me and make me feel exhausted. Then I say, all right, let's use the gift better. Let's use the gift that you already have to be open to receive. Let's decide what you are going to open your eyes and ears to, and let's decide what you will not be open to receiving anymore. Let's learn to harness this gift, to feel everything, to connect to everything, to receive, and really decide what you will begin to connect to. Let's decide to normalize a new type of overwhelm, right? And that is a beautiful state. So that's when we move into the blessing, my loves. That is when we move to thank you for giving me the ability to feel all the feels, to take everything in, to be able to open myself to receive on a massive scale. So listen, for those of you who are listening right now and you think, oh, I never get anything. I don't have the relationship I want. I don't have this. And meanwhile, you're still telling me you're overwhelmed over there. I'm like, look, babes, you know how to receive. Subconsciously, you've been receiving all kinds of stuff. You've been receiving. You've just been receiving the wrong things. So change. Right now, decide, effective immediately. I'm open to receiving what my heart truly desires. More life, more joy, more love. God, open my eyes to see it, right? And you've got to retrain yourself. This is a retraining exercise, what this is. This is an exercise in retraining what you will choose to be open to. Retraining even the psyche's idea that overwhelm is a bad thing. It could be the most beautiful thing you've ever experienced. If you're standing under a waterfall and the water is gushing on you, man, it's over. I've been in a waterfall in Colombia, standing there with the water so powerful, so beautiful, and it's like, whoa, can't stand there too long. It'll wash you away. And that is the final piece I want to say here before we hop, is that, when you're overwhelmed with that much, it takes a little bit to integrate it because it's a lot. It's a lot on your nervous system, right? Even if it's amazing, you go on an epic trip and you come back, sometimes you feel like, I feel so alive. And yet I'm like, whew, I need to integrate that. Recently, we moved into this home. I've talked about it a lot. I love in North Carolina. It's so lush. It's so green. I love our home, our lifestyle. And there's been times where I've literally sat here and I'm like, God, I'm so overwhelmed by how much goodness it is. And you got to be careful because in those moments, your old self will try to come in. And sometimes because the new normal is so much that your old self doesn't know what to do with, it might try to self-sabotage and pull you back in, right? Find things to get disappointed with, try to pull you back down out of that space instead of saying, no, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to enjoy it. And I can move forward. I can integrate this, right? As a new normal. There's something that is said often in the Bible, truly the glory of God is too much. Like when we are face to face with God, it's so much, it's too much for our human bodies. And we can feel that, right? You could feel when you're in such heightened states of epicness, of awesomeness, of love, it can be so much overpowering because that's what it is. You're in the presence of that much power, that much light, that much beauty, that much grace. And however much you can handle in that moment, right, is however much you've trained yourself also, and how much time you've spent in that space, right? So as I just wanted to bring that last piece in, that as you are choosing to experience amazing things in your life, and you're choosing to experience more adventure and more joy and more love, be kind also to yourself in that process, because it can also be overwhelming. And you can fall into these moments like, do I deserve this much goodness in my life? And I'm not gonna lie, like, this is something that I found myself in. Like, God, wow, my life is so good. Like, do I deserve these things? It doesn't mean that we don't have troubles. You guys, when I say my life is so great, like, I still have challenges. I still get upset. I still have moments of totally losing it and crying and, like, all of the things. I feel all of the things, right? But there's been these moments where the sheer joy of things and the sheer joy of these moments or experiences or new relationships that have formed is like, there's that little, old version of you, those old fears that come in and say, oh my gosh, can I sustain this? How do I hold on to it? And here's the trick. Don't try to hold on to it. Don't try to grasp it. Just enjoy the moment, right? Like the moment like, it's like watching a sunset, and it's so glorious, and it's purple and orange and red, and it's deep and it's rich and it's setting. It's like sometimes we can sit there and be like, oh my God, I want this moment to last forever. And you're trying to grasp and hold on. But if you try to grasp, you miss the sunset. You're focused on losing it, instead of going, let me sit here and soak it up, baby. I just want to be here and soak it up, because tomorrow when I rise, will be a massively gorgeous sunrise. And then there'll be something amazing around that corner. Can I soak it up and just be where my feet are planted, instead of being there grasping because I'm trying to hold on to maybe this amazing new relationship dynamic that's forming in your life, or a new opportunity that showed up, and you're like, how do I hold on to this? And by the way, I'm speaking very real, because this happened to me in the last few weeks, where I had a massive expansion, and I kind of felt myself like, oh my gosh, I've got to hold on to it. And it's like, no, you just let it be. Just enjoy it. Enjoy this moment. Enjoy this experience. And continue to move forward, doing what you've been doing, because more of these will show up. More moments like this will continue to come your way. And normalize being overwhelmed by all of this beauty, and know that that's just it. That's just the new normal. This is just life, and everybody's opting in. So with that, I want to wrap. I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for being here. In recap, overwhelm can be a blessing. It can be a curse. The question is, what are you going to open yourself up to, right? Are you willing to close some doors and open some new ones to the right things? Are you willing to feel deep and wide and rich, all of the things, and then just be in the feeling of it? Let it be, let it pass. Don't try to hold on. Can we begin to celebrate those moments of being overwhelmed without starting to panic that, oh my gosh, how am I gonna make this work? Just enjoy it. Whether it's you're going and dating somebody new and it's amazing, or you're having an epic weekend away with your husband or your wife, and you're like, oh, I want this moment to last forever. We have to go back on Monday. It's like, no, just be there, be overwhelmed in that moment, and let it be good, right? So thank you again for being here. I referenced a couple podcast episodes. I'll drop that in the show notes below. Make sure that you check that out, episode 38. Also, I mentioned, accessing the voice of the Spirit and being on those conversational walks. I created a very short 21-day challenge a while back. It's all pre-recorded. You can use it as a devotional, as a spiritual walk. There's a spiritual guide. It's a 21 days, but it's honestly, you could go over it multiple times. So if that's something that you're interested in, deepening your spiritual practice, check out that link as well. It's cheap, it's cheerful, it's accessible. I wanted to put this in the hands of as many people as possible. It's a self-paced course. And we have lots of amazing things coming up. So make sure you guys check out the links in the show notes for ways that you can get involved. We have a 5-day relationship crash course coming up. I'm calling in the partner of your dreams. It's going to be epic. You guys can check that out. Connect with me on Instagram at @TheChristineJewel. And until next time, here's to loving fiercely, leading courageously as warriors of the heart. Bye for now.